Welcome back to No Huddle, everyone, and welcome to my Week 9 NFL predictions. After going 8-5 last week, I improved to 76-45. I hope I can rekindle that form that I had in Weeks 1 and 2 when I barely missed, but we got 14 games to do that, so let's just get started and see what happens. Starting with Thursday Night Football, we got the Ravens traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Baltimore snapped their losing streak with a win against Chicago. Meanwhile, Miami also snapped their losing streak with a win against Atlanta. Both of these teams are very inconsistent. Both of these teams aren't very good. But because of a key figure returning, I'm going to take Baltimore. Lamar, I think, is going to come back. And I think even if he looks slightly like his former self, just looks better than Tyler Huntley, which isn't hard to do, I think that the Ravens are going to run all over them. Just because Lamar is so good with his arm and with his legs, I don't think that the Dolphins really have anyone on the defensive side that can stop them. Meanwhile, the Dolphins' offense, they can maybe cook that Ravens defense, which we know is not very good. But I think that Lamar is just going to outgun them, and that'll be key for the victory. Lamar is my key player for the Ravens, just because if on the small chance that he doesn't look very good, that he keeps turning the ball over, or he fumbles, or he's very rusty and misses throws, then I think that the Dolphins can maybe capitalize on it. And Jalen Waddle is my key player for the Dolphins just because he needs to work as the safety blanket, as the deep threat, basically every single key role on the offense to make Tua's life easier. Jalen Waddle has to be that. I think he'll maybe do a good job against that Ravens defense, but overall, I think Baltimore is going to get their second win in a row in Lamar's grand return. And now we move on to the actual Sunday slate. No international game again. We got the Hospital Bowl between the 49ers and the New York Giants. The 49ers, they lost to the Houston Texans. Meanwhile, the Giants got absolutely obliterated at the hands of Philadelphia. Both of these teams, half their teams are literally in the hospital, but I'm going to take the 49ers in this one. Just because I still think with all the injuries, they've still looked like a very competent team. Meanwhile, the Giants, they've just lost their key figures, and I don't really trust their offense. I think Jackson Dart, without those playmakers, I don't really think he has any outlet for any explosive plays unless he generates them by himself. And I don't know how much I trust a rookie quarterback to do that. But I think Kyle Shanahan is going to cook up a nice game plan, even with all the guys still being out. Like, we've seen the 49ers offense do well. And even though they looked kind of bad against the Texans, the Houston defense is a lot better than the Giants defense. So I think their offense will overall be fine. The key players, it is Christian McCaffrey, because we saw when he got bottled up, the 49ers offense severely struggled. But I think he'll play a lot better, similar to what we saw against Atlanta 2 weeks ago. And I think the 49ers are going to roll. Meanwhile, if the Giants, if they can get some pressure on Mac Jones or stifle Christian McCaffrey and force him to not have 100 scrimmage yards or not let him be a good receiver, then the Giants can maybe win with Jackson Dart doing the bare minimum. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the 49ers are going to win. I just pray that no one dies on that turf because both of these teams are very prone to that. And now we got the Chargers playing against the Tennessee Titans. The Chargers are coming off a big Thursday night win against the Minnesota Vikings. Meanwhile, the Titans, they dropped yet another game at the hands of the Indianapolis Colts. That's kind of a tongue twister. I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. Again, the Titans are just not very good. We saw everything that Indianapolis exploited against them, the Chargers can do the exact same thing. Their defensive line is not good enough, in my opinion, to get pressure on Justin Herbert, especially with Joe Alt being back. And also, the Colts O-line was they were able to part the Red Sea against that defensive line. And with Kamani Vital, I think the Chargers, if they can do a similar thing, and Kamani Vital has a good game, then they're going to be absolutely cooked. Meanwhile, Herbert, when he actually gets protected with Joe Alt there, then he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I think that's going to happen because I don't think the Titans defense poses any sort of threat. I don't think they'll be able to force turnovers or get a bunch of sacks. The key players, I think, like I was saying before, I think it is Kamani Vital. If every time he had those 100-yard games, when he had 100 yards last week against Minnesota, and then he had 100 yards as well against the Dolphins, Justin Herbert looked a lot better, even when he was getting pressured against the Dolphins. Meanwhile, it is Cam Ward for the Titans. Again, not in the sense that I really want him to win the game. Just don't turn the ball over, man. Just stop having interceptions, stop having fumbles, because even though the entire situation around you is bad, Cam Ward is making it worse with all those turnovers. If he can maybe have a clean game for the first time this season, maybe the Titans can be more competitive. But I don't really think that's going to happen. I think LA is going to roll. Now we got an NFC North matchup between the Vikings and the Lions in a rematch of Week 18 last season. I remember how hyped up that matchup was. The Vikings, like I said earlier, they got destroyed on Thursday Night Football to the Chargers. Meanwhile, the Lions, they were on the bye, but the last time we saw them, they prevailed on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to keep this simple. I think the Lions are going to roll and win this game by a comfortable margin. J.J. McCarthy is getting thrown into the Wolves now. Carson Wentz is now out for the rest of the season, which means we're going to have to see J.J. McCarthy, who is basically still a glorified rookie. The last time we saw him play 2 games, and he had 1 good quarter. That's not good. I think the Lions' defensive line is going to make his life hell. I think they're just going to be able to get some basic pressure on him, and I think he's going to fold a lot just because I don't really trust him to make key plays because we've seen him literally play 2 games at the NFL level. This is going to be very unfair. Meanwhile, the Lions' offense, we saw everything that the Chargers exploited last week. The Lions can do the exact same thing. Jared Goff can still make throws without any pressure. Jahmyr Gibbs can gash that defense. Amon-Ra is going to tear apart that secondary. I think the Lions really have no threat to lose this game. The key players, it is J.J. McCarthy, because if he just plays like he did in the fourth quarter against Chicago back in week 1, if he just does that for 4 quarters, then who knows, maybe the Minnesota's just going to outgun Detroit and score like 40. Meanwhile, for the Lions, it is like Aiden Hutchinson / the entire defensive line, because if they just get pressure on J.J. McCarthy just like what they did to Sam Darnold back in week 18 of last season, then Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are not going to be able to do anything to stop J.J. McCarthy from just throwing 5 yards down the field. I think that's going to happen. I think Detroit's going to make Minnesota very uncomfortable, J.J. McCarthy very uncomfortable, and I think they'll keep this nice little winning streak going. Now you got the Falcons going up against the New England Patriots. The Falcons are coming off a bad loss against Miami, which they lost 34-10. Meanwhile, the Patriots, they prevailed against Cleveland at home 32-13. Let's just get the elephant out of the room. Yep, there we go. I'm very sorry, Atlanta, but it just had to be done. But to add insult to injury, I'm also picking the Patriots to win this one. The Falcons are such an inconsistent team. Who knows? They might actually win this game just because they literally just do things out of nowhere. They have no structure whatsoever. But I just don't think they have it in them. Their defense is fine. I think they can maybe get some pressure on Drake May. But Drake May is so polished right now. He's so poised. I don't think that the pressure is going to get to him. I don't think he's going to turn over the ball that much. And I think his deep accuracy is going to continue. And again, I don't know who's going to start between Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, but I don't trust the Falcons offense to do all that much. Just because like both of those quarterbacks are going to be like mediocre or slightly above average at best. The key player for the Falcons, it is Bijan, just because he is the key engine for that offense. When he exploded against the Bills, they were able to win in comfortable fashion. But then when he got absolutely bottled up by Miami, it was scary hours. Whatever happens between that is probably going to determine the result, or at least the performance of the Falcons offense. Meanwhile, for the Patriots, it is Drake May, because if he just keeps playing this MVP caliber football, then the Patriots are going to look like one of the best teams in the AFC. I think that's going to happen, and I think that the Patriots once again win in this very iconic Super Bowl rematch. Again, I apologize to Atlanta. And now we got one of the more interesting matchups this week. We got the Colts visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Colts, they're coming off a really good win against the Titans, 38-14. Meanwhile, the Steelers, in their peanut M&M jerseys, they lost to the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. I feel like this has a bit of an element. This could be an upset pick, but I'm going to pick Indianapolis. I just feel like the Steelers could be prone to some of these wins that they just pull out of their butt. But I think the Indianapolis is going to win just because I think they're the best. I think they're so equipped to beat Pittsburgh. The Steelers' defense is not good whatsoever, despite all that money that they have into it. And even if they force Daniel Jones to throw his way to the victory, I think he can do that. Just because the Steelers, we saw that they lost to, they allowed Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, and Joe Flacco to look good. And now Jordan Love last week. They're not good at forcing quarterbacks to play bad unless their name is Dylan Gabriel of all people. And I just think that the Colts offense is way, way, way too efficient to allow that shaky Steelers defense to actually shut them down. I still think Jonathan Taylor is going to have a good game. And overall, I think the Colts can do enough plays to stop it from being a shootout and let Aaron Rodgers outgun them. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to play well, but I don't think he's going to play well enough to put up like 40, because I think that's probably what he's going to have to do to beat the Colts. The key players, it is Jonathan Taylor, because if he can just not let Daniel Jones be the key factor, if he can just carry the ball a bunch of times and stay 1 or 2 steps ahead of Pittsburgh, which I believe is going to happen, then the Steelers aren't going to be able to turn into a shootout, and I don't think they'll be able to dominate the game. Meanwhile, if Aaron Rodgers can turn back the clock and look like his 2020 MVP self, then maybe they can outgun them. If the Steelers are going to win, it would be a very high-scoring game. But overall, I still think that the Colts are going to roll and pick up their 8th win of the season. I just get a slight inkling that if there's any big upset this week, it would be this one. And now we got a defensive grudge match between the Broncos and the Texans. The Broncos are coming off a demolition job with the Dallas Cowboys. Meanwhile, the Texans, they got a nice redeeming win against the San Francisco 49ers. I had kind of a hard time picking this one just because both defenses are so good. Like I would argue these are my two favorite defenses in the NFL in terms of how dominant they can be. But I'm going to take the Denver Broncos just because I think their pass rush is so good. It's probably the best pass rush in the league. I believe they have a league-leading 36 sacks, an insane number, only 8 games into the year. And we know how bad the Houston offensive line is, and I think that's going to be a factor. Just because Bo Nix, I believe, is only going to have to make a couple of plays doing his magic, which I think he can do against the Houston. I think he can do against the Houston defense. If he has like 1 or 2, maybe like 3 or 4 key plays, then I think it's going to be enough in what I think is going to be a very low-scoring game. I don't think C.J. Stroud is going to be given the same opportunities just because that offensive line is so bad of his, and the Broncos pass rush is just too good. I don't think C.J. Stroud is going to have enough time to really do anything. And like I said earlier, I think there's going to be a very low-scoring game, so I think 1 or 2 plays on the offensive side is going to decide it, and I think Bo Nix is going to get those opportunities instead of Stroud. The key players, like I was saying, it's not really key players, it's more like key units, both defenses. I think both defenses are going to force multiple turnovers or just many 3-and-outs and punts. But whoever has the breakthrough, this reminds me of like Super Bowl 53. I think Super Bowl 53, this matchup is going to resemble that, and whoever gets the first breakthrough is probably going to win, and I think that's going to be Denver. Now we got Chicago with the Bears visiting the Houday Nation, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bears are coming off a loss against the Baltimore Ravens. Meanwhile, the Bengals, they collapsed in epic fashion to allow the New Jersey Jets of all teams to come back and beat them. I had a hard time picking this game just because I'm not a big fan of both teams. I think both teams are very inconsistent or / not very good. But I'm going to take the Bears just because I think their offense is due for a game. And against such a bad Cincinnati defense that once again let the Jets almost drop 40 on them, I think the Bears are going to do a lot better. Caleb Williams is due for a good game. He's been playing kind of mediocre ever since he destroyed the Cowboys. I think Swift is going to play really well. They let Breece Hall run all over them, so I think Swift can do a similar job, not to the level of Breece Hall, but a similar job. And again, like Caleb Williams, if he doesn't have a good game here, then I don't really know how many more good games he's going to have. And even though Joe Flacco, I think, can also tear apart that Bears defense with Jamar Chase, I don't think it's going to be enough, as I think there's going to be kind of a high-scoring game, but I think Chicago's going to prevail. The key players, once again, it is Caleb Williams, because DeAndre Swift can only do so much. Caleb Williams needs to not turn the ball over, which I think he'll keep it clean against the bad Cincinnati defense. And for the Bengals, it is Jamar Chase, because last week he did have 12 catches, but it was only for 91 yards. You need the same amount of catches, but you need more yardage. You need around 120 with another touchdown. And I think if you can produce that and stay ahead of Chicago, maybe turn this into a shootout, and he can have one of his Triple Crown performances, then maybe the Bengals can win, especially at home. But I think Chicago is going to win this one, although this game could go either way. And now we got the Panthers playing against the Green Bay Packers. The Panthers got destroyed by Buffalo 40-9. Meanwhile, the Packers, they've had a really good performance on Sunday Night Football to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Could this be an upset? No. The Packers are going to win this one. I don't even know why I set that up. But the Packers are just overall such a complete team. We see that when they're at their best, they really have no weaknesses. With that duo of Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons being so good, Jordan Love is playing such good football. Tucker Kraft is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And they still have Josh Jacobs in the cupboard. If he needs to have a good game, then I think they can also rely on the running game. Overall, the Panthers, I don't think they have the offensive firepower to keep up with Green Bay's offense. And even if Bryce Young plays, I think the duo of Rashawn Gary and Parsons is going to be so good, they'll probably force Bryce Young back into his government-mandated turnovers. And I think it could get ugly, whether it's Bryce Young or Andy Dalton. The key players, it is Rico Dowdle, I think, for the Panthers, just because if he can alleviate some of the pressure by just running all over that Green Bay defense, similar to what they did against the Cowboys and against whatever other team it was. I think it was against the Dolphins. If he can just run for 100 and something yards and not make Rashawn Gary and Parsons just run at the quarterback the entire time, then maybe their offense can look better. Meanwhile, the Packers, I think it is that duo. It's one of the two, just because when they were both clicking against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they look dominant. But even if one of them breaks out, like what Parsons did against the Cardinals, I think the Packers are going to lock up the Panthers very well and I just think they're going to be very dominant in this home victory. Now we got the Saints playing against the Los Angeles Rams. The Saints are coming off a bad loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Meanwhile, the Rams, they were on the bye, but the last time we saw them, they prevailed against the Jaguars in Wembley. Again, I'm going to keep this short. No setup needed. The Rams are going to win this game. The Saints, they're starting Tyler Shuck, and I believe that the only way that they can win this is if the Jackson Dart effect comes into play. And like if the Rams don't really see Tyler Shuck coming and he has some sort of skill or attribute that we don't know of and that he'll catch the Rams off guard, then maybe the Saints can put up some points. But I just don't really think that's going to happen just because the Saints defense is also not very good to stop the Rams. Like Stafford is playing incredible. I think Puka Nacua is a lot healthier now. I think he'll play back to his best. I think Devontae's still very good. The running game is still very solid. And again, that pass rush duo, the Rams defense, it's going to be enough, in my opinion, to shut down Tyler Shuck. I'm not going to judge him too quickly, but I just don't really think he's very good, or I don't think he'll look very good in this game. The key players, if Tyler Shuck all of a sudden looks like Tom Brady and throws for like 200 yards and maybe the Saints defense gets a couple takeaways, then maybe he can lead them to a victory. But if the Rams, if their pass rush duo of Byron Young and Jared Verse, if they break the game open just like they did similarly against the Ravens and against the Texans back in week 1, then the Rams are going to roll to this victory, and I think that's going to happen. I think the Rams keep ahead in the NFC West. And now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Jaguars were on a bye, but they got obliterated in Wembley by the Rams. Meanwhile, the Raiders, they capitulated at the hands of the Chiefs in a 31-0 shutout loss. I'm going to take the Jaguars in this one, purely off the fact that they're still one of the better defenses when it comes to forcing turnovers, just glossing over the Rams' loss. And they're facing one of the quarterbacks that likes to turn over the ball a lot. Geno Smith is definitely going to give that defense many opportunities to turn the ball over, and I think the Jaguars are going to cash in more often than not. I think Devin Lloyd's going to have an interception or two. I think they're going to give Trevor Lawrence either some defensive scores or short fields that I don't think he'll be able to mess up. I think Travis Hunter is going to play a lot better. I think ETN's going to play better just because the Raiders defense isn't even that good, so I don't think they'll be able to mess up Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to be so bad that he's going to mess up those key chances that Geno gives him. And I don't know. I just think the Jaguars are going to get a nice bounce-back victory coming out of the bye. The key players, like I was mentioning, it is that Jaguars defense versus Geno Smith matchup. Because who knows? If Geno Smith plays like he did in week 1 and just has a random good performance out of nowhere, then maybe they can stay one step ahead of the Jaguars. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Jaguars defense is going to make his life hell. And I mean, if he can have more plays than the Jaguars have first downs, I guess it'd be an improvement of last week. But that's not saying much. And now we got the game of the week, potential game of the year candidate, the Kansas City Chiefs against the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs are coming off a good Monday night victory against the Commanders. Meanwhile, the Bills, they won in dominating fashion against the Carolina Panthers. Look, I think the Chiefs right now are the better team, but I don't care. I'm going to use my heart in this one. I'm not going to use my brain because I will ride or die in this matchup. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. Purely off the fact that I'm going to bet with history this time. I'm going to try and learn my lesson from last week. I think the Bills are going to win because they have the Chiefs number in the regular season. The Bills have not been all that great in the regular season. We saw in 2021, 2023, even last year in 2024, you could argue that the Chiefs were the better team going into the matchup, yet the Bills still won. And they also prevailed in 2022 as well. Now, when it's the playoffs, it's a different story, but in the regular season, I think the Bills are going to win. Again, I don't really have any matchup reasons why. I think that their offense is going to do good enough. I think James Cook, even though Spags is going to try and take him away, I think he's still going to have a good game. I think the Bills defense can do a decent job at limiting the Chiefs pass catchers. I think this is going to be kind of a shootout game, but I think the Bills are going to win because I'm trusting history. The key players, let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not do any cliches or let's not do anything out of the ordinary. It's a quarterback matchup. Whoever plays well between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen is going to win this game. And I think when it comes to the regular season, I think Josh Allen has had the better of Mahomes in those matchups just because Mahomes is kind of prone to turning the ball over against the Bills. I think that's going to happen again. I mean, he threw 2 interceptions against the Commanders. I think the Bills get him at least once. And I don't know, again, I could be biased in this pick, or I'm definitely biased with this pick, but I just think the Bills are going to win. Let's go Buffalo. I'm supporting you guys. And now we got Sunday Night Football between the Seahawks and the Commanders. We're back to objective mode. The Seahawks, they were on the bye, but the last time we saw them, they prevailed on Monday night against the Houston Texans. Meanwhile, the Commanders, they fell flat in the second half against the Chiefs when they lost last week, like I said earlier. I feel like this has a potential for an upset. You'd probably call it an upset, but I'm going to take Seattle to win this one. I just think they're such a well-rounded team. I don't think they're as well-rounded as the Packers, but I still think that they're a very competitive team. I think their defense is good enough to shut down Marcus Mariota or Jaden Daniels or like Deebo Samuel or whoever, like whatever threat comes out of Washington. And I don't think Washington's defense is equipped to stop Sam Darnold, who's one of the better deep ball throwers in the entire league. I think that he's going to get a lot of explosive plays, similar to what the Chiefs did. The game maybe stays close, but I think that the Seahawks pull away due to Sam Darnold's brilliance. I never thought I would say that sentence back in like 2019, but I mean, that's just the state we are now. The key players, it is Jackson Smith-Njigba on the Seahawks side, just because he's been playing like the best receiver in the NFL, and if he just continues that production of having explosive play after explosive play, then Sam Darnold's going to look incredible, and the Seahawks offense is going to roll. Even if the running game gets bottled up, it'll be fine. Meanwhile, speaking of running game, it is Bill Krosky-Mara. I keep mentioning his name once again because if he has good games and he doesn't get bottled up, then the quarterbacks are going to have to do anything. And I think that the Washington Commanders' best chance of winning is if Marcus Mariota doesn't have to do all that much. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll be able to do enough, and I think Marcus Mariota is going to rear his ugly head, and Seattle is going to walk away with a Sunday night win. And ending the week, we got a battle of Jesus Christ. We got the Cardinals playing against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry World. The Cardinals, I'm pretty sure, were on the bye, but the last time we saw them, they collapsed in the final minutes against the Packers. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, they also got destroyed at the hands of the Denver Broncos. Both of these teams has a lot of flaws, but I think the Cowboys overall have better strengths. Their offense is still really good. I know they looked kind of static against the Denver Broncos, but that's a really good Denver defense. And the Cardinals obviously do not have the Broncos defense by any means. Dak, I think, is going to have a bounce back game. I think Drake Ferguson's going to have a bounce back game. The receivers are going to play well. I think Javonte's going to do enough. And the Cardinals, it's just a matter, I don't think they'll be able to keep up with the Cowboys offense, whether Kyler Murray or Jacoby Brissett plays. I don't think they'll be able to make the explosive plays. I don't think they have the running game. And I don't think they have the defense to be able to stop them. I think if the Cowboys get to 30 points, it'll be curtains for them. And I think the Cardinals are just one of the more lifeless teams in the NFL right now. Their key players, I think it's a battle of tight ends. This is kind of a unique matchup. I think if Trey McBride, he needs to turn into the best tight end in the NFL, which he is one of them. But if he makes... He needs to make those explosive / complementary plays, just have a bunch of catches for a lot of yards. Whether Kyler Murray or Jacoby Brissett plays, I think if he can keep up the tempo and control the offense, keep the Dallas offense off the field, it's kind of weird that it's up to a tight end to do that, but I mean, he's the only hope that they have. And for the Cowboys, I think it is Jake Ferguson, just because he's such a good safety blanket for Dak Prescott. He's kind of like that Dalton Schultz replacement. And we saw that when he had a donut against Denver, he looked pretty bad, even with the receivers looking decent. I think if he has a better game, that opens up the receivers to do better. Dak is going to be better, and I think Dallas is going to get a bounce-back win in Jerry World. And that, my friends, is going to end week 9. I really hope this week is a lot better than last week. Hopefully it's not just a bunch of blowouts. Hopefully you get some nice close games. Hopefully I get some more right predictions. But if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, as any support is truly appreciated. I'm having a lot of fun this NFL season making these videos. But I'll see you guys next week at the end of week 9.